I think that makes the tongue push and it makes it smaller.
You're good.
Okay. All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is, I know you guys have done intubation for fun, so you really mainly know how to do this. But now we're going to do the formal rubric that, time allowing, you'll be tested on. So you all have a copy of the formal rubric. I'm just going to go over it piece by piece so it makes sense to you right now. The main thing, like I just got done ranting about, but you didn't get on video, is that we need to make sure that the model and the scope are well lubricated, okay, because otherwise this plastic gets torn up and it won't work. So make sure the blade of the laryngoscope is lubricated, okay, as well as the balloon of the endotracheal tube. So basically every time you go to do this, if it's been more than 2 or 3, please re-lubricate it, all right, because it actually will destroy the model and then we won't be able to do this anymore. But anyway, all right, so you get 30 points for showing up. You'll have time to prep your equipment as usual. Then step 1 is to check the laryngoscope light and then close it. And you'll see on your rubric it says before attempting to intubate, okay? So you're going to open this, and let me warn you guys again, this flange, if you get your skin stuck in here when you open this, you're gonna scream like crazy and blood's gonna come out. Okay, I'm just telling you, don't do that. You're not gonna be happy about that. Check your light, okay, make sure your light works. It's like I've told you guys before, when I would walk into the ER for a shift, the first thing I would do is go to the airway cart and make sure the laryngoscope works, because when you're using this, somebody's dying. And if the light doesn't work, it could be the bulb, it could be the batteries, you don't know. Okay, so you find that out ahead of time. All right. Check the endotracheal tube balloon. Now, we didn't get there yet, right? But this is the same idea. We're going to get to where we give the patient medications, and that is both going to sedate and paralyze that patient. As soon as you give those medications, the patient stops breathing. That's why you need to check all of your equipment to start with so that you can actually do your procedure and not say, oh, I'm going to have to wait a couple of minutes and find a new endotracheal tube. Well, the patient doesn't want you to wait a couple of minutes because they're not breathing anymore, okay? So check your balloon. Make sure it holds air and is inflated. Any piece of equipment can possibly not function correctly. Place your stylet into the endotracheal tube. Again, so those 3 steps all have to be done before you attempt to intubate. And in real life, that is true as well. Now we're going to prepare the patient, okay? So when you hear, like in COVID, you heard about people being in a medically induced coma, right? When they're intubated. Well, that's what we're talking about right now. So you're going to order your induction agent to sedate the patient. So you could, even though it would be extremely unpleasant, you could tolerate being intubated awake if your life depended on it. You would gag and choke, just like anything touching the back of your throat, a tongue stick, or you know what I mean, like that. But you could do it. But you would not tolerate being completely paralyzed and unable to move your body or breathe while you're conscious. So you induce a coma, a patient into a coma before those things occur, all right? So the induction agent is the thing that actually sedates the patient. There's all different kinds of induction agents. You may have heard of propofol or etomidate or midazolam or Versed. Midazolam and Versed are the same thing. You're going to hear this stuff when if they talk to you, the anesthesiologist in the operating room. That's the first thing. Those things generally take 2 or 3 minutes to take effect. So you would order, say, please give the induction agent. You've got your equipment prepped. You're ready to go. Please give the induction agent. And you're literally looking at a second hand on a clock. And you wait. Then you say, order, please give the neuromuscular blocking agent. That takes like 45 seconds to work. Okay, so you give the induction agent first, so they go unconscious and are unaware of anything that's happening. Then you give the neuromuscular blocking agent, vecuronium, norcuronium, norcuron, succinylcholine. You'll hear these things with the anesthesiologist. Then that's when you see them, like seeing if the patient's mouth moves, do they respond to being touched, stuff like that. That's going to paralyze the patient. Paralyzing the patient is actually really important because once the patient is paralyzed, everything is floppy and you can move it around so that you can find the opening to place the tube. Okay? Well, Piper told me a couple minutes ago, she's like, oh my God, I saw the anesthesiologist intubate the patient and they just slid it right in. It's like, yeah. Remember I told you guys? It's way harder to intubate this thing than a real person. Once a real person is sedated and paralyzed, they are so floppy, their mouth gapes open, and you lift up with the laryngoscope, and there's the larynx for you to place the tube. Super easy, easier than doing this, okay? The other thing though is sometimes patients have a like an autonomic response. You guys learned about the autonomic nervous system, and they'll vomit due to the stimulation of the pharynx. And then now you're holding their airway open, and that vomit goes down into their lungs. And that vomit has a pH of like 2, and that's a horrible thing to happen. When they're paralyzed, they can't vomit because vomiting entails contraction of the stomach and everything coming up. So there's lots of reasons why you have to paralyze the patient when you're intubating. So please provide the induction agent. Please give the neuromuscular blocking agent. Then you actually position the airway. This is what people forget to do because it's so simple. And both in this rubric and sometimes in real life, not if well trained. What I'm going to do right now, positioning the airway, will make or break your procedure. Just like that thing with the barrel on the needle, this is it. You need to put the patient in the sniffing position so you can line up the airway with your laryngoscope. If you don't, if they're in this position, you cannot intubate them. It would be impossible. Impossible. This movement right here, even though it's so low tech, is going to determine whether you make or break. So position the airway. Then you insert your laryngoscope. And this is something new. You guys haven't used this yet. This is just suction. So in real life, the suction machine is on the wall, and there's a tube that connects to the end of this, and this is tonsil tip suction. There's all different kinds of suctions. This is hard suctions. You can move the tongue, you can move teeth, jaw. In trauma cases, you can find foreign bodies and pull them out and stuff like that. So you're going to place your laryngoscope. Now the patient's all floppy, and you're going to suck all the saliva out of the back of the pharynx so that it doesn't go down the trachea. All right, just the same idea as vomiting, except the person had saliva in their mouth when you paralyzed them, so you need to get that out before you place your tube. So that's a new thing that you guys haven't done, okay? Okay. Now you're actually going to intubate. Now, like I said, you can use this, you can use the straight blade, or you can use the video laryngoscope if you want to. When I say check the light and the direct laryngoscope, if you use the video laryngoscope, turn it on and make sure it works instead, okay? And so now you're literally just going to place the tube. Remove the laryngoscope, inflate the balloon, remove the stylet. Okay, here's something else that's new for you guys. So, why do we breathe oxygen? What is the important reason? Because what is 79% of what's swirling around us in this gas? Nitrogen. But we never talk about nitrogen, right? It's 79% of what we're breathing, but we never talk about it. What makes oxygen so important?
It dissolves in water. Yeah, soluble in water.
And what do we do with it? We make ATP with it, right? Because how long will we live without ATP? Like a minute. We don't store ATP. We have to make it continuously. Cyanide stops your ability to make ATP. Cyanide kills you in like a minute, okay? You have to constantly make ATP. What's the gaseous waste product of CO2? This is an end-tidal CO2 detector. So as soon as you intubate the patient, blow up your balloon, remove the stylet, this goes on here. Okay, now it's yellow now. They're purple to start with. And then confirm ET tube location with the bag valve mask. And this is what's happening in real life too. You don't connect them up to the ventilator until you've confirmed tube placement, etc. Now you're going to bag the patient. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is oxygen goes in. Bye, Haley.
Bye.
Carbon dioxide is going to come out. And this membrane is going to turn from purple to yellow. Remember, yellow, yes. That's one way you confirm that you're in the right place. Because, of course, this patient is not breathing on their own. So you have to be breathing for them, okay? So you place the end-tidal CO2 detector, and then this is not going to change again. It's just going to be yellow, okay? But you are going to see that either the lungs are going to semi-inflate or move, or the stomach is going to inflate. If the stomach inflates, you put the tube in the wrong hole, okay? You've got the esophagus and the trachea. if you were just stick it in there, it's going to go in the esophagus. That's why you have to use the laryngoscope to find the opening of the trachea, right? Because now it says you have to state your location. That's why I'm making a fuss over that. Confirm ET location by bag valve mask and state the location. Air's going into the lungs, so my tube is in the trachea. If it was in the esophagus, you would say the tube is in the esophagus. There's a way from you escape from that without losing points, which you'll see, okay? Order a chest x-ray to document tube position. So right now, let's say, please order a portable chest x-ray. They're gonna be on their way to come and do that, and that's gonna confirm that your tube is in the right place. All right, that's the end of the procedure if you put it in the right place. So you're gonna deflate the balloon. That's a big deal. If you don't deflate the balloon, you're definitely gonna lose points because that's how the model gets destroyed. But in real life, you could tear somebody's vocal cords because that's the narrow spot that it has to come through. So you have to take the balloon down and remove the tube. Okay, so you're done if you put the tube into the trachea. But if you had put it in the esophagus, all you have to do now to save yourself is put this mask on the bag valve mask and bag the patient, because you're going to have to do it again. That's okay. You can breathe for them this way. Perfectly fine. And that's what would happen in real life. Okay?
So do you have to redo the entire thing?
No, you don't have to redo it. But you recognize that the tube's not in the right place and what you do in that situation.
So there's nothing that you do after that?
No.
So if we did,
But
put
you
it
don't
in
have to. But you don't do this at all if it's in the right place.
So if we put it in the esophagus and we did that, we wouldn't lose any points.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that happens in real life sometimes too. So that's really going over it in detail. Okay. Any questions about that?
Can we practice?
Yeah. Yeah, you can absolutely.
Bye, video.